Welcome back, quilters. I am working on my skull quilt. I've decided to name her Morticia. She had some redwork leaves on that I really didn't like, so I ripped those out, and I've decided that I want to do a little bit of some frond design that I've used on other quilts. And to do that, I'm going to be working with a version of stencils. Normally, we have a stencil, we lay it on the quilt, we pounce it. I always use the Miracle Chalk. And then when we move the stencil, we quilt over what was left behind. And that's fine if you have a stencil that fits where you want. I, however, have this frond design that I want to do. There, we get that under the camera there. And like I said, I've used this on other quilts. Now, if I were to just take my pounce pad and go over this, I would have a lot of extra chalk. So I'm going to use the lid of my pounce pad, which is filled with chalk from all the times I've pounced in the past. So I've got a brush, and this is just a little bristle brush. It's just from the hardware store. And I'm going to scoop up some of this, and I'm going to brush over all around my stencil. And I don't have to do the whole thing, because I think if I'll do part of it, you'll get the idea. You can do this with, this is that stencil plastic that you can cut. So I trace my design on and then I cut it out. Now if I pick it up, you can see here that it's left that design for me. Now, on my quilt, I'm going to bring this back over, get rid of this. I'm going to come over here and you can see I've already done that. I've already put my stencil down. I used my brush and I put my Miracle Chalk around that. I moved my stencil, and I stitched around it. Now, here's one I haven't done yet, because I want to show you another little trick. I never do the tack down stitches, unless it's a quilt that's maybe going away to college. But if it's going to be a quilt that I really want it to look nice, I always tie and bury my threads. So, I am going to tilt my camera a little bit so you get a better view. And I'm going to bring my needle down. Oh! So here's my stencil, and you can see I've already pounced it in, so I've got my outline design. I'm going to bring my machine down. I'm going to take one stitch and bring up my bottom thread. Then I'm going to do a single stitch to put it back down. Now, this thread, I've been told, well, hold that thread when you start stitching. Really? I don't have time to hold this thread and hit my button and guide my machine. It's just too much to think about. So I've got these threads. You can see I've got a pin back here. I'm just going to take these threads and I'm going to wrap them a couple of times around my pin to get them out of the way. Now, they're not going anywhere and I don't have to move them. I don't have to hold them. I'm going to turn my machine on and I'm going to stitch, following this outline. And I don't care if I don't hit it perfectly, because I've got the general shape, I've got the design, I've got the idea. And I don't want them to be 100% exactly the same. It's freehand, and we're going to have those little bobbles. Once I'm done with that, I'll go back in, maybe put some veins into it, and I'll have to go back in the others. I'm going to come back to the center part here. I'm going to come up. There's one little curly vein. There's another little curly vein. And up in there. Just some little tiny things that give a little interest to it. And I'm done. I've stopped my machine. I bring my needle up. I move my machine aside. I come back, do one stitch, and I'm going to pull this up. Give myself a nice long tail. Thread doesn't cost that much. It's easier to work when we don't cut our tails really short. Clip that off of there. Move my pin. Now I'm ready to bury those threads. And when I bury those threads, I will take and I find my two that go together. These two here. And let's move this machine over a little bit there. I tie a square knot. We all learn how to tie square knots when we learn to tie our shoes. And I use this needle. This needle has a self-threading end. And I think they're by Dritz. You can buy them at your local quilt shop. And I will take, and it's hard to watch this, pop my threads through, go back down into the hole where my stitching was, go through a couple of layers. Oop, get my hands in the way there. Pull this through, give it a little pop, so I hear that knot click through, clip my threads, and I'm done. Now, to get rid of my pounce, I have this great big blue sponge covered with microfiber. I actually got this at the automotive department, so go to your automotive store, and I just scrub on my quilt, and that will get most of it off, and then I can go back and iron it off later. So you can see I've got all of this done. I've used my stencil to create this frond. I really like this better than those red work leaves that I had. And I'm going to go back in and I'll put in all of my veins and my others. And then I'll use those stencils around the other roses. So I guess I'll get busy quilting and I'll talk to you all next time.